Welcome, everyone. I think we're ready to get going. It's right on time, and we're going to talk for half an hour today, specifically on the topic of how QA leaders can stay indispensable in a world that is absolutely obsessed with speed. And I'm certain everyone can already guess a little bit about what the main topic there is going to be, so we'll move on to that in a moment. First, just a little bit about me. I am the CEO and the CPO, so I lead product and vision and roadmap at Centercode. I'm a co-founder. This is a company I started many years ago. I began my career actually in test. I worked in test at Samsung. While there, I moved over to the engineering side when sort of the web was blowing up and getting really exciting. And I moved over to Ericsson to run a web team in the engineering org there. And in the time between those two, I did get a great opportunity to experience both hardware and software, consumer and business. And then since then, I've expanded that wildly to many other experiences. I'm wildly passionate about removing friction from technology. I consider myself a very mission-driven individual. And as a result, not a coincidence, we are a very mission-driven company. I'm also very transparent. You're going to find that today, especially if we get to any sort of Q&A or anyone wants some follow-up. There's nothing I'm going to talk about that I wouldn't be happy to dive deeper into. There's no internal resource that I'm allowed to share that I wouldn't. I really do just want to help as much as I can. Again, the mission is I want everything to be better. I want everything to be easier. I want technology to be more accessible and useful. And anything I can do to improve that footprint is going to be important. So I'll be candid, I'll be blunt, but that's kind of where I am. Anybody here is absolutely free to reach out to me at luke@centercode.com. I'm easily accessible. I am on LinkedIn, but I will admit I'm a little more responsive on the email side. So please don't hesitate to reach out if there's any questions, if you want to talk. And then over here on the right, you can see from a recent trip to Japan, a little friend I made. It's a lot of fun. A little bit about Centercode, who we are, what we do, this company that I've started. We help companies engage directly with audiences to release the best products possible. And we've been doing this for over 20 years. And as you can see on the right, I'm not going to read any of these names, but you probably know most of them. And frankly, that's a fraction of who we've worked with. This is what I am most proud of in the world. I'm not, again, going to read all of our ROI to you, but you can hopefully see it there. We are very proud of what we do and how we achieve our mission. And again, it's not a coincidence what this company does. I've built a team that is equally passionate around this. This is what we do. In terms of the pillars of the company and what we invest our time and resources into and how we add value to the world, first of all, we have a platform. That platform is a SaaS subscription platform that helps companies, typically tech companies, with some form of tech. It can be hardware, software, business, consumer. Again, we're agnostic. But it helps them engage with audiences to collect feedback, often in the forms of things like issues and whatnot, that are ultimately going to help build the best product possible. I'm going to talk a little bit about that today, but this isn't going to be a deep dive. We also have a network of testers that is available. So anybody who is interested in bringing outsiders in to help test upcoming products, which I will talk a little bit about today, we do have a tester network available. And that actually is something we make available, obviously, to our customers in a very direct way. But we also, sort of as a favor to the world and part of our mission, we do make this tester network available to everyone else as well. So if you're looking for testers, that's something we can help you with, whether or not we have a commercial relationship. Next, we do offer services where we manage these types of tests for companies. Now, typically, this is sort of a customer journey. It's not the core of our business, but it is a meaningful part that's been there for over 20 years. And what this means is companies come to us, we help them get started, we help them build a program, and then we effectively hand them the keys and they run it themselves. And some companies already have a program and they just sort of purchase our software, acquire our software to help facilitate that and get much better results. But often they just don't have the resources to get started and they'll use us. Last up, again, on the sort of free to everyone side, we have a sort of publisher mentality. We don't believe in secret sauce. Everything we learn and having our own services group means we have our own test kitchen. Everything we learn, we publish. We understand that beta testing has always been more of an idea than a system. Everybody does it their own way. Everybody does it, but they all do it somewhat differently, and they're all kind of forced to learn the same lessons. We don't think that's a reasonable way for technology to progress. So everything that we've learned, we make available to the world. So whether or not you can afford or justify a relationship with us doesn't matter. If you go to our website, you will find an immense amount of information that we have published. Okay, so the world's moving quickly, and obviously the center of that, the nucleus, is AI. And of course, you may or may not be sick of hearing about it already, but you're going to hear about it a little bit today. But I want to start with kind of going back a step and talking about some of my thoughts and opinions as someone who has invested an enormous amount of time into this on the ethical side of AI. And if I was giving a talk dedicated to AI, this would be a little bit longer, and I would talk about much deeper thoughts about this. But I'm going to do just a few lines here to just make sure we're sort of on the same page. The first thing is you're going to find out that I am incredibly excited about AI and the capabilities and what it can do. But at the same time, if I could put that genie back in the bottle, I would. The reality is I don't really trust the system that we have to adopt this to the best of everyone. I do think we're going to have some more wealth disparity created and things that are going to create big problems that we're going to have to solve because of the amazing power that this grants and sort of how it's coming to the world. But at the same time, I recognize that I have a mission, I have a sphere of influence. You each have your own spheres of influence and likely your own missions. And there's no world where I'm going to be able to put the toothpaste back in the tube. And at the same time, as a technologist, as someone who grew up loving technology and wanting more out of it, I think it's magic. And again, I could talk about this for hours. It's important to me. I think it's magic. I think it's incredible. I think the idea that we finally have this truly fuzzy input where people who are not incredibly tech savvy can get so much out of it is just mind blowing. And I don't think we've yet wrapped our heads around what that really means. So while I do recognize there's some bad and I have some trust issues with the way that we go about handling that, on the other side, I think it creates some incredible opportunities. And in terms of removing friction from technology, I actually don't think there's anything in our history that's done a better job at that. So just wanted to kind of level set where I sit on all this, because you are going to get a lot of excitement, but I do understand some of the risks as well. Now, in terms of quality and releasing products, AI has absolutely changed the game. For some of you, this may be very novel. It may not be happening yet, but you're obviously reading about it, thinking about it, hearing about it. It's coming. It's coming for everyone. What we are going to see, I'm very confident about this because it's already happening, is sort of in a per project basis, we're going to see fewer engineers, but at the same time, more releases. We're going to see non-deterministic code paths appear, meaning we're now using systems that are designed to be creative, and we're putting a creative piece of technology in the loop, which is pretty new to us, and we're still sort of figuring that out, and engineers are going to be figuring that out. And at the same time, tool chains are going to change constantly. Now, if you're at a small company, they're going to change every week. If you're at a big company, it might be every month. But every month at a big company is crazy. Things don't typically change that fast. But if you're going to stay competitive and achieve goals, that's just what it's going to be for a while. And chances are you're already starting to feel that acceleration. You're going to see more of it. I can absolutely guarantee that. At the same time, as most people here are probably already witnessing, you're going to see leadership pressure to continue to cut costs. And this is going to be an avenue or an excuse for that, a scapegoat for that. And at the same time, we're going to be expected to ship faster because of all these new gains and the fact that we can now lean on agents to do so much work for us, especially on the engineering side. Now, as someone who started my career both in test and engineering, I never would have imagined that this is where it was going first, and that engineers were going to be some of the first to get displaced due to this. But it's a reality. It's happening, and it's happening at a very, very fast clip. Now, where things start to break, where you guys come in and it gets interesting, is silent regressions at the edges. And this is something we could go a lot deeper into, but the reality is there's a lot here that you're not seeing, moving parts that an engineer didn't even mean to change. So it's not going to end up anywhere in notes. It's not going to be something expected. It's going to be a big problem. You're also going to see a lot of environmental and data drift in the wild. And there's a lot, again, to unpack here, but part of it has to do with the fact that any products that your product talks to, connected products, be it software or hardware, are going to have some of the same changes happening that are going to get real strange. There's also going to be a lot of places where companies are going to absolutely shoot themselves in the foot when it comes to security and privacy and so on. And that's going to be a big issue. So PII, GDPR, things that have been rising forces in the last few years and becoming more and more important are actually going to become even greater risks. And that's something we're going to have to deal with. Now, last up on this list is the idea of green light automation is going to mislead. So AI is, of course, going to infiltrate quality, as it already has and will continue to, but also engineering. And everybody at the end of the day wants this sort of green light, red light, green light. Did it work? Did it not? And we're going to start to see green lights that aren't really quite as green as they seem, where they don't catch those edge cases because of those weird, unexpected things happening. And everyone was moving so fast with new technologies and new ideas. And the reality is, unless you're Meta and spending $100 million per employee, you're probably not hiring experts at every level. And even those guys are relatively new to it. There's only a couple dozen in the world. So the reality is everybody at every level is new to some of this new technology, but it's so exciting at the highest levels and in the market that it can't be avoided. It's just creating an enormous amount of risk. Now, the other side here is you can become, what we're looking for here is you can actually become the customer readiness authority. And that's sort of the pitch here today is you can add a customer grade validation process to your footprint within the organization. And that's a phrase I'm going to use a lot, is thinking about your footprint, because to me, half of this is how do you do your job in this new rapidly changing world? The other sort of part that no one wants to say out loud or admit, but again, I promise to be candid, is how do you keep your job? How do you do both sides? How do you not become the target? And how do you not become sort of the victim of one of these wild swings while doing as great a job as possible? And those are two sides of the same coin. What we are going to recommend, what I'm going to talk about today, is the idea that you can launch and or take ownership of a world-class program that you can use to enhance your results and give yourself that foothold in the company. Now, what I'm talking about here, again, is customer testing programs, integrating customers into your testing processes in a more interesting and modern way that aligns with the way that products are developed now. And I do want to point out that typically, and we've done a lot of research on this, we've been in the space for 20 years, dealt with hundreds of companies. Typically, if an established beta program exists within your company, and depending on sort of how new it is and where you guys are in your maturity, it will reflect this. There's a good chance, greater than average chance, that product actually owns that program. They are the ones responsible for this. And what I can tell you is this is typically not something that they appreciate. They do it reluctantly. It's something that they kind of consider the 11th hour of their day. And quite often they're not doing it efficiently. They're not up to the modern speed. And often they're doing it so infrequently that they forget everything they learned by the time they have to do it again. So there's a lot of flaws in this. And the opportunity to take something that is kind of a necessary evil in their eyes, it needs to be done, but they don't enjoy it, and take that over and produce real value that, again, also protects your own role, your own job, your own team, is an interesting opportunity that I hope you guys will appreciate. Now, the other thing is you're moving from this idea in this world from, it passed the tests, again, the green light, to we've proven it ready in the wild. And we now have the confidence and we can take ownership of that confidence because we've actually ran this successfully out in the environment that it will exist in. And from this, and I'll talk a little bit more about this in a few minutes, you can also then own and share a reusable customer user community. And that's actually a very meaningful thing. There's a lot of things you can do with that community that can, again, extend your footprint in the organization at little to no cost, resource or otherwise to you. So when I talk a little bit more about that in a few slides, hopefully you'll start to see that, this is something that would make my organization more indispensable in this new world. Now, next is the idea that you could also own or publish a mission critical readiness score for your products. And this is something that many companies lack, but something I can tell you that every leadership team needs to do is have KPIs at a high level that help direct some of the core decision making and the go, no goes at the company. And if you are the one that publishes and owns those KPIs, then what you're effectively doing is getting those leaders addicted to that data. And when they're addicted to that data, your value grows, your career grows, you're staying within that organization, and you now have that security. So I'm going to talk more about that in a minute and a little bit about how we look at that. So let's talk briefly just sort of how we can help. And I do want to come at this from two angles. One, I would love to help you. I'd love my company to work with you, obviously, for both commercial reasons and for my mission. And I believe it is a win-win. At the same time, these are ideas that you could take and start to percolate on your own. You don't necessarily need us to get started down the path. We do provide, obviously, a solution that I'd love to work with you on. But regardless, I would like you to walk away with some ideas and some thoughts. And if you have questions, again, whether or not there's a commercial relationship to be had, I'd be happy to answer them. Now, talking about sort of how we help with this, and typically this would be a demo. We'd be diving into software, but we've only got 30 minutes today, and we're halfway through it. So I just want to walk you through some of the high levels here. And you start typically by setting some context within the platform. And as you might imagine, our platform uses AI extensively, but it's in a human-first model. Our AI is all directed by people, and then it sort of takes over for you. And that's important because I also believe it's very challenging to bring new software into a company right now if it is not, AI-driven and AI-enabled in some meaningful way, because nobody wants to buy antiquated software that's not going to help them deal with all these changes in the market. So the first thing you do within our platform is you actually set the context of what you want to test. And it's very simple. You're just going to provide and allow the system to ingest whatever information you have. Now, they can be existing test plans, they can be PRDs, they can be whatever you have around the product. And it's actually going to break it down into end user facing test cases that are going to ensure your entire product is explored. You can then reshape that. You can add your own. You can record video, or screens are part of it. There's a depth of functionality there. But ultimately, all you're doing at the baseline is providing it with information, and then it's going to help determine, okay, this is the period of time we need, and we're going to get testers to understand that these are the things they need to do with the right instruction. They're going to test that product for you. Now, when it comes to finding the testers, this is another key aspect, is you have an audience in the world that is going to buy your product. They're the people who have the problems that you solve. What we're looking for is to find those people and basically position to them that, hey, you want a seat at the table, you want to be part of solving that problem, well, then come in and test. And I'll talk more about some of the magic there in a minute, but the idea is you're going to want targeted people who match whatever the market for that product is. Your ideal customer profile that's going to buy this product is the one that you want using it and vetting it for you out in the wild. And the system provides a very extensive means to do that based on whatever is important to you. So you can profile their technographics, the products they own, the ecosystems they're in, their demographics, the types of people that are likely to buy and use this product. But also, as this goes on, you're building performance profiles automatically. So if you need some incredible testers for a highly confidential thing, then you can do that very easily as well. And again, if it comes down to it, I'm happy to show anyone the system. That will, of course, be available. But this is kind of just a hint as to sort of how that works. Now, next up, and this is the real magic of the platform, is the hardest thing in our space is getting testers to engage. Let's imagine you've invited 100 customers to be part of a beta test. You want them to test your product and find those real world issues. Well, typically you're looking at a 20 to 30% engagement rate. And even that is when companies are doing some things right. On our services side, we hit 90 to 100%. Our software is designed to get you there. The way we do that, amongst other things, reducing friction for testers, providing one cohesive platform that does all this, the biggest piece we have is an agent that handles all of your engagement for you. So it's effectively using that test plan that you provided or that was generated based on your data. It's using that test plan as a map. And that becomes sort of a blueprint that it uses to map out this test and make sure that everything gets tested. Now, what it's doing is actually building a behavioral profile on every single tester. And it's understanding when they test and what they've done and what they haven't done and so on. And it's then further encouraging and customizing its own behaviors in real time to get the most engagement possible. So the little screen here is actually pulled from a dashboard that just shows, okay, the bot, the agent, sent 3,600 messages. And some of these might have been text messages, phones, it's multi-channel, or email, it's multi-channel. It crossed a number of time zones, so you're not worried about that, but you're getting that breadth. And from this, they reviewed 900 activities. And in this case, it's showing that was 140 people. And so far, they've actually gone through and completed 674 test cases covering 16 different features and generated an enormous amount of deduped feedback as a result of that. Now, in terms of that feedback, this is, of course, the most important takeaway here is what are you actually getting? And our system allows you to collect a very diverse type of feedback, but really it breaks down to three key things that we typically care about. What's broken and needs to be fixed, so definitely the quality world, what could be improved, and what should be promoted. And while on the quality side, your primary concern today might be that fixed side, obviously it often bleeds into the UX, the CX, things like that. That is all captured as well. But when we have all three of these things, we can actually start to assess exactly how this product is going to perform and user sentiment and so on. And even if we're just primarily concerned about quality because that's your core role in the organization today, we're actually going to get a much bigger footprint than that again, that we can then use to truly understand how this product is going to perform out in the wild, understanding that we have now these three different things. Now, from that, and this is my personal favorite part, we get true KPIs, benchmarks from product to product, release to release. And these releases can be as frequent as you want. We're typically all in sort of a CI/CD that's moving real quick nowadays. And really, we're looking at three core results that we want to become the benchmarks. And we want one of these to ultimately become that metric that your executives are addicted to. So kind of from left to right, looking at the middle column there with the engagement, health, and so on. The first metric we have here is how confident are we in our results? And basically what that means is we've set a target for how many people we need to test and how many activities and tests they need to complete. And the higher that letter grade goes, the more we've gotten out of that. So of course, when we get to our A+, we've hit our goal and we've done well, which means we have complete confidence that yes, we have the amount of results that we need to be confident. And that's statistical significance to be confident that we have what we want. That middle score, that 60 to 72 there, is the product success rating. This is the sentiment of how this product is doing in the eyes of our customers that are using the product. Now, this one's really interesting and it would take more time than we have right now to unpack it, but imagine we have issues dragging that score down. We have ideas or opportunities dragging it down. We have praise pushing it up. All of these things are being ranked individually behind the scenes. There's logic there. And at the end of the day, we have this score. And this score tells us how we're doing. And we can then build our readiness results based on that. So we can say, okay, we need to hit an 80 in order to get this out. So we need high engagement, which means we have our confidence, we're very confident in our results. And then we have that 80 is what we release at. So we're working toward that. The last score on the right is then going to actually be your ROI, your value. This is saying that, okay, if I own this program, I own this test, then what this is actually doing is saying, okay, what is the impact of this? Because this system is going to be integrated with your internal tools like Jira, and we're going to have a bidirectional integration to where if an issue gets reported by a tester and then your engineer goes and fixes that issue, well, we know that had that issue not been found and fixed, the score would have been lower. We know that that issue was fixed, so that score is now higher. So that difference becomes the impact. So we actually have a measurement for how this test is going, and we can see diminishing returns and so on. And again, this is a sneak peek of a really cool dashboard. And just one little thing, I can turn this dashboard into a meeting on the fly. I can feed these results into other systems so they can sit in executive dashboards. A lot of magic happening here, but those three metrics become things that I would be willing to bet at this level, this sort of in the wild level, you probably don't have today. And those can be very valuable. Now, in terms of the full breadth of it, I'm not going to read this whole slide, but this is a full platform for managing this program very quickly and efficiently. And while it may look like a lot, one other thing to keep in mind is that everything is templatable. So you sort of build out a template for what you like, you're up and running in days, and then you're up and running individual tests in minutes. So it's not something that is very time consuming. You just kind of have to decide how you want it to work. We do offer you a very prescriptive and opinionated path that we consider to be best practice, but we primarily work with mid to large companies, enterprises. They're going to want to go off the rails. They're going to want to integrate with their own systems, and those capabilities are all there as well. So you do have this dedicated community that we can augment. You can qualify all of your testers. You can select testers. Again, video recordings, surveys, whatever it is you need to get the answers that you need to understand where your product is. It's all there, down to the metrics and KPIs, the integrations with your own systems, feedback management, collaboration, dashboards. It's all there. This is a system we've been building for a very long time. It has been tried and tested by the biggest companies in tech. And it's something that, again, I believe would allow you to hit the ground running and increase your value within the organization. Now, I've mentioned it a couple of times, but it is so critical to integrate with your existing systems, to integrate with Jira, to integrate with Slack or Tableau or whatever you already use, to use your corporate SSO to remove friction, to allow you to very easily pull releases from things like TestFlight and Google Play. And then, of course, an open API to connect to any sort of in-house or ad hoc systems that you might have as well. So that is, the degree we're talking about. Now, as I already mentioned, we deal with a lot of very large companies. You've heard of most of our customers. The reality is these are enterprises that care a lot. They have a lot of liability. They have to worry about things like NDAs handled by the system. They have to worry about PII and GDPR handled by the system. Our goal is to take all of that off your plate and let you focus on results. Now, as I already mentioned, and I'm just going to hint at it a little bit here, this can be a longer conversation if anyone's interested in kind of picking at this, but we also do offer testers. We understand that getting started, building that initial community or getting access to the right people to test is something that many companies find very challenging, and finding great testers. So we have built our own community over time, which is also a network. And by that, we mean we have a group within it, which we call our ambassadors, which is many thousands of people. Whenever we need very specific testers who meet a very specific profile for a vertical or a specific industry, we can also help you find those. So it's not just, random nerds that love tying products. It's everybody. If we need to go test on elderly people because that's where that product is going, that's something we've done many times. Okay, Some closing thoughts as we're running out of time here is ultimately what I want to help you do is mitigate the existing reductions that might already be happening. So if you're already losing your team, which many companies have, they've been asked to do more with less this year, then one interesting thought for you, an idea, is to put your customers at work. And you really do have to remember your product solves a problem where it wouldn't exist. It's got people who have that problem, who are likely passionate about that problem. Those people will volunteer their time and their energy to come help make that product better, to have even the smallest seat at the table. And it's such an important thing to them that you can use that to your advantage and you both win. And then you're now saying, okay, well, I may only have half the team, but I can actually put an army of my customers to work because they want to volunteer to make this thing better. And I can now extend my footprint. Maybe one QA guy could actually manage hundreds of testers and get a lot out of that. Now, another thing, and again, this is an idea that could take an hour on its own, but we've seen a lot of impressive results from dogfooding programs, meaning companies do this thing, but they're not maybe ready or capable right now of bringing full customers in just yet. They'll start by having their own team test. And there's a lot of benefits to this, everything from the culture of the company to getting everybody closer and understanding the products more. But you can actually have your own team participate as an extension of testers. And as companies are getting really creative in how they think about the resources where they use them, using your own team with all this AI and automation to automate the process can be a valuable reuse of that role or of that resource workforce. The next one, again, core to the whole message here is that you can really position customer testing as a mitigation of rapid change. Everyone is going through rapid change right now. And even, if it's small change at a big company, then it's still big change and it's still happening faster than it usually does because everybody's afraid of falling behind because this truly is a monumental change. This is the next wave or the new wave. So thinking of this as an insurance plan that, hey, if we're going to make all these changes to engineering and we're going to start implementing all this new, more advanced AI automated testing, then we really need to make sure we're getting it in front of real customers. And those customers are giving their word in, and we can use that to gather their real experiences and the real issues that they're running into in their more dirty environments. That becomes very valuable. And then the other one, again, I want everybody to really take this one to heart because I think it's very important, is you need to get leadership addicted to KPIs that you own. And if you are that warden for getting out the door and saying, yeah, we have the readiness score and it's not ready and here's why, and that's real customer tested. It's not just what we found that product's going to make an argument, that's an edge case, no one's actually going to run into that. Well, someone did. And in this case, 5 people did. We understand. And now there's some meaningful conversations to be had to protect the company, to protect the product. And if you have that responsibility, then there's obviously value there. Okay. Closing out here, this is, I don't give a lot of demos nowadays. I have a sales and product teams and SEs that do this stuff. But this is my sort of community, my group. And I would be happy to talk to anybody who's interested. So happy to give you a tour of our platform or just talk about this stuff, talk about AI, talk about the changes. One of the most unique and frankly fun benefits of my role right now is I get to have a lot of these great conversations and I get a lot of exposure and I'm happy to talk about it. I love talking about it. I have fun with it. So it can go either way. I would love to show you our platform. I'd love to show you how we can work with you and maybe it makes sense, maybe it doesn't. But if not, I also just love talking to smart people about where the world's going. So do not hesitate. Please, please, please reach out. Also, anybody who is interested in this, I can set you up with a no-cost pilot to try it, to kick the tires, to run real tests on it, to make sure it works. We know that budget is hard to come by right now. Not only is AI taking over the world, and we, of course, have a tool with AI in it, but we also know that everybody is cutting costs right now and that there's a lot of challenges with tariffs and everything else. And we're not looking to close a deal today. Obviously, we're a company. We want to grow. We want to achieve our mission. But we understand the state of the world and anything we can do to help you prove value, both of yourself and of Centercode and whatnot, we're there for you. So we're happy to get creative. It's kind of where my head is. So please reach out, luke@centercode.com. I'm here. Again, we'll do my best to be very responsive and happy to have those conversations. And I hope this was meaningful and I'm happy to answer any questions.